You think you can outwit me, Elena?
No, Marcus.
Pick them up.
I have my own ride.
The sound came first, a sharp metallic clink that echoed across the marble floor like a slap no one could ignore. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence. Even the string quartet at the far end of the grand ballroom faltered, their melody breaking into an awkward silence. Coin after coin scattered at her feet, not gently, not accidentally, thrown, deliberately, carelessly, cruelly. A ripple of shock passed through the crowd, but no one moved, no one spoke, because standing at the center of it all, towering, composed, untouchable, was Marcus Hale, billionaire, media darling, the man who built an empire from nothing, and was now tearing his own wife apart in front of the very world that once envied her. "Pick it up," Marcus said, his voice calm, cold, final. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Power doesn't shout, it commands, and in that moment, every eye shifted to her. Elena, the woman who used to walk into rooms beside Marcus and owned them without saying a word. Now, she stood alone. Her fingers trembled slightly at her sides, not from weakness, but from the weight of what had just been done to her. Her lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came out, not yet. Around her, the whispers had already begun. Wasn't she the one who supported him from the beginning? "I heard she doesn't even have a degree. She got lucky. That's all. Look at her now, invisible, reduced, rewritten. Funny how quickly the world edits your story when power shifts hands." Marcus adjusted his cufflinks, barely sparing her another glance. "You wanted a settlement," he continued, his tone now carrying just enough edge to cut. "There it is." A few people chuckled, low, uncomfortable, eager to align themselves with power. Because in rooms like this, people don't side with truth. They side with whoever's winning. Elena's gaze dropped, not to the coins, but to the reflection in the polished marble beneath them. A woman staring back at her, still, composed, unbroken, but standing on the edge of something dangerous. And for a fleeting second, just a second, something shifted in her eyes. Not pain, not shame, something sharper, but it vanished as quickly as it came, because humiliation has a way of demanding your silence first. Marcus turned slightly, gesturing toward the stage where a woman now stood watching with a faint, satisfied smile. Tall, elegant, perfectly styled. Vanessa Cole, his first love. His real love, according to every headline that had flooded the internet that morning. And now, the woman he had brought on purpose to witness this moment, to replace Elena publicly, to rewrite the narrative in real time. "Vanessa deserves a life that reflects my standards," Marcus added, his words landing like a verdict. Not compromises. There it was, the comparison, the final cut, because this was never just about divorce. This was about value, about who was seen as worthy, and who was discarded once they were no longer useful. Elena slowly lifted her head, not toward Marcus, but toward Vanessa. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Because Vanessa expected tears, she expected collapse. She expected victory. What she saw instead confused her. Elena didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't break. She just looked at her, calmly, quietly, as if she knew something no one else in that room did. A murmur passed through the crowd again, this time less certain, because something felt off, but no one could quite name it. Marcus, however, didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. He reached into his pocket again, slow, deliberate, and pulled out another handful of coins, and dropped them, this time closer, this time louder. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he said. "Take what you can get." The words landed heavier than the coins, because they carried history, years of it. Late nights, sacrifices, moments no one in this room had witnessed. Moments that built the very empire Marcus now stood so proudly on, and yet, here she was, being reduced to spare change. Tell me something. Have you ever given everything to someone, only to be treated like you were nothing? Have you ever stood in a room where people decided your worth without knowing your story? Have you ever been underestimated? Not because you lacked value, but because someone else needed to feel superior. If you have, then you already understand what Elena is feeling right now. But here's the part they don't see. The part they never see. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one holding the most power. Elena finally moved. A single step forward, not toward the coins, toward Marcus. The room stiffened. Anticipation crackled in the air. Was she going to plead? Argue? Break down? Marcus tilted his head slightly, almost amused. Careful, he said under his breath. Dignity doesn't suit you when you've got nothing left. A dangerous statement, because men like Marcus believe power is permanent. That control, once gained, can never be challenged. That silence equals submission. Elena stopped just a few feet away from him, close enough to see the faint arrogance in his eyes, close enough to remember everything. Her voice, when it came, was soft, measured, steady. You're right, she said. The crowd leaned in. You've made your position very clear. Marcus smirked slightly, satisfied. Of course he had. That was the point. But Elena wasn't finished. And you've made theirs clear too, she added, her gaze flicking briefly across the audience. That caught them off guard, because, now, she wasn't just speaking to Marcus, she was speaking through him, to every person who had watched, judged, whispered, dismissed. A subtle shift, but an important one. Because power isn't just about who holds it, it's about who recognizes it. Marcus's expression tightened, just slightly. Then we're done here, he said, turning away as if to end the moment on his terms, as if he still controlled the narrative, as if this was the final scene. But life doesn't always follow the script the powerful write, because just as he took his first step away, the massive doors at the far end of the ballroom swung open, not gently, not quietly, but with a presence that demanded attention. Every head turned, every conversation died. Again, and this time, even Marcus paused. Outside, headlights cut through the evening darkness, bright, commanding, impossible to ignore. A sleek black Rolls-Royce glided into view, its engine humming with quiet authority. Not flashy, not desperate, just certain. The kind of presence that doesn't ask for attention, it takes it. The driver stepped out first, uniform crisp, movements precise. And then, the rear door opened, but before anyone could see who was inside. We stop, right here, because what happens next changes everything. So, before we continue, I need to know what you think. Do you see Elena as weak right now? Or dangerous? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've ever been in a moment where people underestimated you, hit that like button, because this story, it's for you. And trust me, you're going to want to stay for what comes next. Elena didn't open the envelope immediately. That alone. Unsettled people. Because anticipation is powerful, but restraint, that's control. And control, in a room full of people who feed on spectacle, is deeply uncomfortable to watch. Marcus exhaled sharply, stepping closer, his patience thinning. Enough of this, he snapped. Whatever game this is, it ends now. Game, that word hung in the air, because Marcus still believed he understood the rules, still believed he was the one setting them. The man beside Elena didn't react, didn't argue, didn't explain. He simply stepped back, just one step, giving her space, not as protection, but as acknowledgement. This wasn't his moment, it was hers. And that subtle shift? Everyone felt it. Elena finally looked down at the envelope again. Her fingers traced its edge, slow, deliberate, almost thoughtful, as if she were remembering something, not deciding, remembering. And that distinction, it mattered, because it meant this moment didn't start tonight. It started long before Marcus ever threw those coins. The room leaned in, even the ones pretending not to care, because human nature is simple. When power shifts, people want front row seats. Elena slid her finger beneath the seal, opened it. No rush, no hesitation, just quiet certainty. The soft tear of paper echoed louder than it should have. Or maybe it just felt that way. She reached inside and pulled out a single document. Clean, official, heavy in a way paper shouldn't be. Her eyes scanned the first line, and something changed. Not dramatically, not visibly enough for everyone to understand, but enough. Enough that the man beside her gave the faintest nod, enough that Vanessa's posture stiffened, instinctively sensing that whatever was happening wasn't in her favor. Enough that Marcus, for the first time tonight, felt it, that flicker, that subtle shift where certainty begins to crack. What is that? He demanded. Elena didn't answer. Instead, she lifted the paper slightly, not high enough to display it to the room, just enough to acknowledge its existence. And then she spoke, not loudly, but clearly. Do you remember, she said, her voice steady, the first office you ever had? The question caught Marcus off guard, because it wasn't relevant. Or at least, it didn't seem like it. What does that have to do with anything? He replied, irritation sharpening his tone. Elena tilted her head slightly. You couldn't afford rent, she continued. The walls were cracked, the chairs didn't match, and every investor you met turned you down. A murmur passed through the crowd, because now she was telling a story. And stories have power. Marcus's jaw tightened. That was years ago, he said. It's irrelevant. Is it? Elena asked softly. A pause, a dangerous one, because now she had everyone's attention. Not with force, but with memory. You walked out of your last meeting that day ready to quit, she continued. You said it was over. Marcus didn't respond. But the flicker in his eyes? It was there. Barely, but present. And then, Elena added, her gaze locking onto his, someone stopped you. The room was silent now. No whispers, no movement, just listening. Because something deeper was surfacing. Something no one in that room had expected. You told me I wouldn't understand, she said. That I didn't belong in your world. Her lips curved slightly, not in bitterness, in truth. And yet, she lifted the document just a fraction higher. I was already part of it. Marcus took a step forward. Stop talking in riddles, he snapped. If you have something to say, say it. There it was, frustration, because clarity is comforting. And Elena was taking that away from him, piece by piece. The man beside her finally spoke again, his voice calm but firm. I'd advise you to let her finish. Marcus turned sharply. This doesn't concern you. The man held his gaze. It concerns more than you realize. A quiet statement, but heavy, because it carried certainty, and certainty, without explanation, is unsettling. Elena lowered the document slightly, not to hide it, but to shift focus back to her words. Do you remember who signed your first contract? She asked. Marcus frowned. Of course I do, he said. I built this company. A beat. Elena didn't argue, didn't correct him immediately. She simply waited, and that silence? It did more damage than any accusation could, because doubt started to creep in. Not loudly, but subtly, like a thought you can't quite ignore. Marcus's confidence faltered. Just a fraction. What are you getting at? He asked, his voice lower now, careful, because, now, he wasn't entirely sure. Elena took a slow step forward, closing the distance between them, not aggressively, but intentionally. You're right, she said. You built an empire. Another pause, and then, but you didn't do it alone. The words landed, simple, obvious, yet suddenly, heavy, because everyone in that room knew it was true. No empire is built by one person. But what they didn't know, what Marcus had never allowed them to know, was just how much of it belonged to her. Elena finally turned the document outward. Not fully, not enough for the entire room to read, but enough for Marcus to see, up close, clear, undeniable. His eyes dropped to the page, and in that instant, everything changed. The shift was immediate, sharp, visible. His expression didn't explode, didn't break, but it cracked. And for a man like Marcus, that was louder than any outburst. because what he saw, he recognized not just the document, but the signature, the structure, the truth he had buried. "What is this?" he asked, but the question lacked its earlier authority. Now it carried something else, uncertainty. Elena met his gaze, and this time, she didn't hold back. "This," she said, her voice steady and clear enough for the room to hear, "is the original ownership agreement." A collective intake of breath swept through the crowd, because now it wasn't just personal, it was financial, it was power. It was everything Marcus had built his identity on, and suddenly, it was being questioned. "Impossible," Marcus said immediately. Too quickly, too firmly, because denial is often the first response when truth arrives uninvited. "You forfeited everything when you signed the divorce papers," he added. Elena didn't flinch, didn't react, because she already knew something he didn't. "I signed what you gave me," she replied calmly. A subtle difference, but a critical one. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" Elena held the document steady. "I'm not implying anything," she said. "I'm reminding you." Silence, heavy, thick, unavoidable, because in that moment, the narrative had shifted completely. She was no longer the woman being discarded. She was the woman holding something he couldn't ignore, and for the first time tonight, Marcus wasn't in control. "Tell me something. What happens when the person you thought was powerless turns out to be the foundation of everything you built? What happens when the one you dismissed is the one holding the truth? And what happens when it's already too late to take it back?" Stay with me, because we're right at the edge of something bigger than revenge. This isn't just about humiliation anymore. It's about ownership, power, and a truth that's about to shake that entire room. The memory didn't arrive gently. It hit Elena like a flash of heat behind her eyes, the kind that pulls you backward without asking permission. A small office, not the grand ballroom, not the empire, just a cramped startup space with flickering lights and mismatched desks. Marcus wasn't a billionaire then. He was hungry, impatient, sharp around the edges, and already convinced he was destined for something bigger than everyone else in the room. Elena stood near the doorway that day, holding a stack of files she had been asked to deliver. She wasn't dressed to impress, no designer labels, no polished confidence, just simple clothes, neat hair, and a quiet presence most people overlooked within seconds. Marcus barely glanced at her when she walked in. "Leave it there," he said, pointing at a cluttered desk without lifting his eyes from his screen. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just instruction. Elena stepped forward, placing the files down carefully. She lingered for a second, just long enough to notice what he was working on. Lines of code filled the screen. Messy, unstructured, rushed. Marcus exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered under his breath. Elena hesitated. Then, "You're calling the function before defining the parameters." Marcus froze, slowly turned his head, looked at her properly for the first time. "What did you just say?" Elena didn't shrink under his stare, didn't rush to explain. She simply pointed at the screen. "There," she said softly. "You're referencing something that hasn't been initialized yet." Marcus leaned back slightly, studying her now, not with respect, but curiosity mixed with disbelief. "You code?" The way he asked it sounded like a challenge, like the idea itself didn't sit right with him. Elena nodded once. "A little." Marcus gave a short laugh, not amused, dismissive. "Right," he said. "And I suppose you're going to fix it for me too?" Elena didn't respond immediately. She stepped closer instead, reached for the keyboard, paused, just for a second, waiting for him to stop her. He didn't, not because he believed her, because he didn't take her seriously enough to object. Her fingers moved. Quick, precise, confident in a way that didn't need to be announced. Marcus watched, at first with mild irritation, then focus, because the errors he had been stuck on for hours started disappearing, line by line, correction after correction. Clean, efficient, logical, the kind of work that doesn't guess, it understands. Elena stepped back after a few seconds. "That should run now," she said. Marcus didn't speak. He turned back to the screen, ran the program, and it worked. Perfectly. A silence settled between them. Not awkward, not empty, just heavy. Marcus leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing. Where did you learn that? Elena shrugged faintly. I read a lot. Another pause. Marcus studied her again, longer this time, more carefully, as if trying to figure out how someone like her fit into what he had just seen. You're not on the team, he said. It wasn't a question. No, Elena replied. Then what are you doing here? I help with admin work, she said. Part-time. Marcus leaned back, folding his arms. There it was again. That look. Assessment. Judgment. Placement. Like he was deciding which box she belonged in. You don't look like someone who understands systems, he said bluntly. Elena held his gaze. Calm. Unbothered. What does someone who understands systems look like? Marcus didn't answer immediately, because the question disrupted something, not loudly, but enough. Finally, he scoffed lightly. Not like you. There it was. Clear, direct, unfiltered. Elena nodded once, not offended, not surprised, just noting it. All right, she said quietly, and turned to leave. Marcus watched her walk away. Something about it unsettled him, not because she challenged him, but because she didn't. She didn't argue, didn't prove anything further, didn't try to change his mind. And for someone like Marcus, that was unfamiliar. Wait, he called out. Elena paused at the door, turned slightly. What's your name? He asked. Elena. A beat. Marcus nodded once. Marcus. She didn't respond with admiration. Didn't react like his name meant something, because at that time, it didn't, and strangely, that made him pay more attention. You fix that faster than my entire team, he said after a moment. Elena gave a small shrug. They were overcomplicating it. Marcus almost smiled. Almost. You're not what I expected, he admitted. Elena's expression didn't change. You didn't expect anything, she said. A quiet statement, but precise. Marcus let out a breath, shaking his head slightly. Fair enough. Another pause. Then, you should come back tomorrow, he said. Not an offer, a decision. Elena tilted her head slightly. For admin work? Marcus's gaze held hers. No, he said. A brief silence. Then he added, I could use someone who notices things, but even in that moment, even as he extended the opportunity, there was something underneath it. Not respect, not yet, just utility. Because in Marcus's world, people were valuable based on what they could do for him. And Elena, at that point, he saw her as useful, nothing more. Tell me something. Have you ever been seen for what you can offer, but not for who you truly are? Have you ever walked into a room where someone decided your worth in seconds? Without understanding your depth? That was the beginning, not of a love story, but of an illusion. And illusions are only powerful until the truth steps in. The nights were always quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of silence that settles when the world moves on without you. Elena sat at the small kitchen table, a laptop open in front of her, the glow from the screen reflecting faintly in her eyes. It was past midnight. Again, Marcus wasn't home. Again, but his work was everywhere. Spreadsheets, draft proposals, fragments of ideas that didn't quite connect yet. He had left them scattered, unfinished, impatient, waiting for clarity he hadn't found. Elena exhaled softly, scrolling through a file. Why would you structure it like this? She murmured under her breath. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, adjusting, refining, simplifying, not for recognition, not for praise, just because it made sense, because leaving it broken didn't sit right with her. The front door opened. Elena didn't look up immediately. She finished the line she was working on first, saved it, then turned. Marcus stepped in, loosening his tie, irritation written all over his face. They rejected it, he said flatly. No greeting, no context, just frustration. Elena closed the laptop gently. Why? She asked. Marcus scoffed, tossing his keys onto the counter. They said the structure wasn't scalable, he replied, that it lacked long-term stability. Elena hesitated. Then, did you show them the revised model? Marcus frowned. What revised model? A small pause. Elena turned the laptop slightly toward him. This one. Marcus walked over, glancing at the screen. His eyes scanned it. Once, then again, slower. What is this? He asked. I reorganized your projections, Elena said. You were focusing too much on short-term growth. They're looking for sustainability. Marcus's expression shifted. Not fully, but enough. You did this? He asked. Elena nodded. I thought it might help. Marcus stared at the screen a little longer. Then, why didn't you tell me? Elena's answer was simple. You didn't ask. Silence. Not tense. Just honest. Marcus leaned back slightly, exhaling. They've been asking for something like this for weeks, he admitted. Elena didn't respond, because she already knew. Marcus closed the laptop halfway. You should have been in that meeting, he said. Elena shook her head. That's your space, she replied. Marcus studied her again. There it was. That same look from the first day, trying to understand something that didn't fit his expectations. You're wasting your time doing admin work, he said. Elena smiled faintly. I'm not doing it for the job. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Then why? A pause. Then, because I believe in what you're building. The words landed, simple, but heavy, because belief, when it's genuine, carries weight. Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked away briefly, processing. Then, you know this doesn't mean anything, right? He said. Elena blinked slightly. What do you mean? Marcus's tone hardened, not cruel, but clear. I didn't ask you to do this, he said. You don't owe me anything. And I don't owe you anything either. There it was. The boundary. Defined early. Sharp. Clean. Elena held his gaze. I know, she said. And she meant it. No expectation. No hidden demand. Just truth. Marcus nodded once. Good. Because in his mind, that kept things simple, controlled, safe. But what he didn't understand was that Elena wasn't keeping score. She wasn't calculating value the way he did. She gave because she chose to, not because she expected anything back. And sometimes, that kind of loyalty is the most dangerous thing to underestimate. Marcus picked up his keys again. I'll use this tomorrow, he said, nodding toward the laptop. Elena smiled faintly. Okay. He paused at the door. Just for a second. You did good, he added. Not praise, not warmth, just acknowledgement. And then he left. The door closed. The apartment returned to silence. Elena sat there for a moment, still, then slowly opened the laptop again. Because she wasn't done. There was always something more to refine, something more to improve. Not for credit. Not for recognition, just because she could. Tell me something. Have you ever poured your time, your energy, your mind into something, knowing no one might ever give you credit for it? Have you ever believed in someone's vision so deeply that you worked behind them, quietly, while they stood in the spotlight? That was Elena. Not loud, not visible, but essential. And the most powerful foundations are the ones no one sees until they're gone. The office had grown, not dramatically, but enough to feel different. More desks, better equipment. A small sign on the wall now carried the company's name. Marcus's name. Things were moving. Slowly, but moving. Elena stood near the back, organizing files, her presence as unnoticed as ever. That hadn't changed. What had changed was everything she touched. Marcus paced near the front, speaking to two developers seated at their stations. No, that's not the issue, he said. Frustration building. You're focusing on the output, not the logic behind it. We've checked the logic, one of them replied. It's consistent. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Then why is it failing? No one answered. Because no one knew. The system kept breaking at the same point. No matter how many times they adjusted it. Elena glanced up from her desk, watched, listened. Then, she stood, walked over slowly, not interrupting, just approaching. Marcus noticed her first. "What is it?" he asked, already half dismissive. Elena looked at the screen. "You're not accounting for external inputs," she said. One of the developers frowned. "We are," he replied. Elena shook her head slightly. "Not fully." Marcus crossed his arms. "Explain." Elena pointed at a section of the code. "You're assuming the data remains stable," she said. "But it doesn't. There's fluctuation you're not tracking." The room went quiet. Because now, they were listening, not because they believed her, but because they wanted to prove her wrong. "Show me," Marcus said. Elena reached for the keyboard. Again, that pause, that moment where she waited for permission that never came. And then she adjusted the code. Small changes. Precise. Intentional. She stepped back. "Run it," she said. Marcus did. The system processed, paused, then stabilized. No errors. No failure. Just clean execution. A long silence followed. One of the developers leaned forward. "How did you catch that?" he asked. Elena shrugged lightly. It was obvious. Marcus let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh. More like disbelief. "You keep saying things are obvious," he said. "They're not." Elena tilted her head slightly. "They are," she replied. "You're just looking too far ahead." Marcus stared at the screen, then at her. Something shifted again. Not enough to fully acknowledge, but enough to register. "You should be on this team," he said. The developer beside him nodded. "Yeah. Seriously." Elena shook her head. "I'm fine where I am." Marcus frowned. "Why?" A pause. Then, "Because you don't need me where you think you do," she said. That answer didn't make sense to him. Not yet. Marcus stepped closer, lowered his voice slightly. "You keep fixing things I can't," he said. "That's not fine. That's important." Elena met his gaze. Calm, unshaken. "You're the one building it," she said. "I'm just helping." Marcus exhaled slowly. And there it was again. That imbalance, not in skill, but in perception, because Marcus still saw himself as the architect, the one in control, the one leading, and Elena? She let him, not because she couldn't take that position, but because she chose not to, at least, not yet. "Tell me something. Have you ever watched someone overlook the very person solving their biggest problems? Have you ever seen brilliance dismissed because it didn't come packaged the way people expected?" That was Elena, not in the spotlight, not on the payroll that mattered, but quietly, consistently, holding everything together. The success didn't change Marcus. It amplified him. The sharper edges became sharper. The confidence turned into certainty, and certainty, without balance, becomes arrogance. The apartment was larger now, modern, clean, impressive, but something about it felt colder. Elena stood near the window, looking out over the city lights. Marcus walked in, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I said we'll close by Friday," he snapped. "I don't care what legal says. Make it happen." He ended the call abruptly, tossing his phone onto the table. "They're slowing everything down," he muttered. Elena turned slightly. "Maybe they're being careful," she suggested. Marcus scoffed. "Careful doesn't build empires," he said. A pause, then he added, "Speed does." Elena studied him for a moment. Then, "Speed without structure breaks things," she said quietly. Marcus's expression hardened. There it was, the resistance. Because advice, when it comes from someone you don't fully respect, feels like opposition. "I didn't ask for your input," he said. The words landed heavier than intended, but he didn't take them back. Elena didn't flinch, didn't react immediately. She simply nodded once, "All right," and turned away. Marcus watched her for a second. Something about her calm response irritated him more than if she had argued. "Why do you do that?" he asked. Elena paused. "Do what?" "Act like you always know better," he said. Elena turned back slowly. "I don't," she replied. Marcus stepped closer. "Then stop correcting me." A beat. Elena held his gaze. "I'm not correcting you," she said. "I'm helping Marcus let out a short laugh. "I don't need help," he said. There it was. Clear. Final. Elena nodded again. Okay. Silence filled the space between them. Not loud, not explosive, but heavy, because something had shifted, not visibly, but internally. A small crack, easy to ignore. At first, Marcus picked up his phone again, already moving on, but Elena remained still for a moment. Her eyes lowered slightly, not in defeat, in thought, because moments like this, they don't end things, they reveal them. Tell me something. Have you ever tried to support someone, only to be pushed aside when they started rising? Have you ever watched someone grow, and forget the hands that steadied them at the beginning? That's where the illusion begins to crack, not with betrayal, but with dismissal, quiet, repeated, unnoticed, until it's too late. The room was designed to intimidate, not loudly, not obviously, but everything about it spoke the same language Marcus understood best. Control, dark wood panels, floor-to-ceiling glass, a skyline view that reminded you exactly where power lived. And who owned it? Elena sat on one side of the long table, still, composed, unadorned, no designer dress, no statement jewelry, nothing to compete with the room, nothing to distract from her. Across from her, Marcus didn't sit. He stood, leaning slightly against the edge of the table, like he had already decided how this would end, and beside him, his lawyer, Richard Hale, sharp suit, sharper smile, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to make people uncomfortable, because his confidence did it for him. He flipped open a leather folder, glancing briefly at Elena before looking back down. "This won't take long," Richard said, his tone smooth, efficient, no greeting, no acknowledgement of emotion, just process. Elena didn't respond. Richard slid a document across the table toward her. "The terms are straightforward," he continued. "A clean separation. No shared assets beyond what has already been allocated." Marcus watched her, not carefully, casually, like someone observing a formality. "You'll find it generous," he added. Generous. The word hung in the air. Heavy, loaded. Elena looked at the document. Didn't touch it yet. "Generous?" she repeated softly. Richard gave a small, practiced smile. "Given the circumstances," he said, "it's more than fair." Elena lifted her gaze slightly. "Which circumstances are those?" Richard paused, just briefly. Then, "The fact that Mr. Hale's company is solely under his ownership," he replied, "and that your contribution, legally speaking, is minimal." Minimal. Marcus didn't interrupt, didn't correct him, because that version of the story worked in his favor. Elena's fingers rested lightly on the table, still not reaching for the paper. "And who determined that?" she asked. Richard's smile didn't change. "The law," he said. A simple answer. Clean. Final, but something about the way he said it carried certainty that hadn't been earned. Elena nodded once. "Of course." Marcus pushed off the table slightly, walking around the edge. "You don't need to overthink this," he said. "It's done." Elena turned her head toward him slowly. "Is it?" Marcus met her gaze, and for a second, there was something there, not doubt, not yet, but awareness. Then it passed. "Yes," he said, confident again, controlled. "Sign the papers, Elena." Richard tapped the document lightly. "Page 3 requires your signature," he added. The pen was placed beside it, perfectly aligned, waiting. Everything in the room suggested one thing. This was already decided. Elena finally reached for the document, not rushed, not hesitant, just precise. She flipped it open, scanned the first page, then the next. Her expression didn't change, didn't tighten, didn't reveal anything. And that unsettled Richard more than any reaction would have. "You understand what you're signing, correct?" he asked. Elena didn't look up. "I always do." Marcus exhaled softly, impatient. "Then let's not drag this out." Elena turned a page. Another. Silence stretched. And in that silence, something shifted, not visibly, but quietly, because, while they saw a woman reviewing documents, they didn't see what she was actually doing. Remembering, comparing, not the words on the page, but the truth behind them. Richard leaned back slightly, folding his hands. "There's no need for concern," he said. "This is a standard agreement." Elena paused, then finally looked up. "Standard?" she asked. Richard nodded. "For cases like this, yes." Elena held his gaze. "Cases like what?" Another pause. This one slightly longer, because now, the question wasn't procedural, it was personal. Richard adjusted his posture. Where one party has significantly less involvement in the financial structure of the marriage, there it was again, carefully worded, but clear. Minimal, less, irrelevant. Marcus watched her reaction, expecting something, anything, but Elena simply nodded, as if she agreed, as if none of it mattered. And that was the first mistake they made. Because silence doesn't always mean acceptance. Sometimes it means preparation. Tell me something. Have you ever sat in a room where people spoke about your life, as if you weren't the one who lived it? Have you ever listened to someone reduce your worth to numbers on paper, while ignoring everything you gave? That's where this begins. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with a quiet understanding that the truth is about to collide with a very expensive lie. Marcus poured himself a drink. Slow, controlled, the kind of movement that suggested he had already moved on from the conversation, as if this entire moment was just a minor interruption. Elena closed the document. Still unsigned, Marcus noticed. Of course he did. But instead of addressing it directly, he smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, just knowingly. "You always do this," he said, taking a sip. "You stall." Elena looked at him. "Do the first?" Marcus nodded. "When things don't go your way," he replied, "you take your time. Like it changes anything." Elena's gaze didn't waver. "I like to understand what I'm agreeing to." Marcus let out a short laugh. "There's nothing to understand," he said. "It's over. Simple, final, dismissive." Elena tilted her head slightly. "Is that how you see it?" Marcus set his glass down. The sound was soft, but deliberate. "How else should I see it?" he asked. Elena didn't answer immediately. Because the question wasn't really a question. It was a statement. Marcus stepped closer, not aggressively, but with intention. "You were never meant for this world," he said. The words landed without hesitation. Without hesitation. Because he believed them. Elena's expression remained unchanged, but something in her eyes shifted, just slightly. "You tried," Marcus continued. "I'll give you that. Tried. Another reduction. Another simplification. But trying isn't enough," he added. Elena's voice, when it came, was calm. "What is enough?" Marcus looked at her, really looked this time. Not past her, not through her, at her. "Someone who understands what it takes to stand beside me," he said. A beat. Then, "someone who matches my level." There it was. Not hidden, not softened. Clear, direct. Elena nodded slowly. "And you think that isn't me?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I know it isn't." Silence followed. Not tense, just revealing. Because now, there was no confusion, no misunderstanding, just truth. Marcus walked a few steps away, adjusting his sleeve. "You were comfortable in the background," he said. "That's where you belong." Elena watched him, carefully. "Did you ever ask if that's where I wanted to be?" Marcus paused, then turned back. "I didn't need to," he said. "It suited you." Elena's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, more like recognition. "You're right," she said. Marcus frowned slightly, because agreement wasn't what he expected. "It did suit me," she continued. A pause. Then, for a while, Marcus's expression tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Elena didn't answer directly. Instead, she leaned back slightly in her chair, relaxed, unbothered, and that unsettled him, because this wasn't how these moments usually went. There was no pleading, no emotion, no visible loss, just calm. Marcus picked up his glass again. "You know," he said, his tone shifting, I used to wonder why you never changed. Elena raised an eyebrow slightly. Changed? Marcus nodded. Your style. Your presence. The way you carried yourself, he explained. You never adapted. Elena considered that for a moment. Adapted to what? Marcus gestured around the room. To this, he said. Elena's gaze followed his gesture briefly, then returned to him. I was already part of this, she said quietly. Marcus shook his head. No, he replied. You were around it. That's different. A sharp distinction, one he had believed for a long time. Elena didn't argue, didn't correct him, because she didn't need to. Not yet. Marcus took another sip. I needed someone who could stand next to me without looking out of place, he continued. Elena's voice remained steady. And you think I looked out of place? Marcus met her gaze. Yes. No hesitation, no regret. Just certainty. Elena nodded again, slowly, absorbing it, not reacting to it. And that was power. Because when someone expects you to break, and you don't, it shifts everything. Marcus set his glass down once more. Sign the papers, he said. Let's end this properly. Elena looked at the document again, then back at him. Properly, she repeated. A quiet word, but loaded, because what Marcus called proper was built on a version of the truth that only worked if she stayed silent. And silence was something she controlled, not him. The door opened without a knock. Confident, unapologetic, as if whoever was entering already belonged. Marcus didn't turn immediately. He didn't need to. He knew. Elena did too. Jessica Lane stepped into the room like she had rehearsed it. Poised, polished, every detail intentional, from the way she walked to the way she smiled. Am the first interrupting? Jessica asked lightly, but her tone suggested the opposite. She wasn't asking. She was announcing. Marcus glanced over, a faint smile touching his lips. Perfect timing, he said. Elena watched the exchange, quiet, observant. Jessica's eyes finally landed on her, and for a brief second, there it was. Assessment, comparison, victory. You must be Elena, Jessica said, stepping closer. Her voice was smooth, pleasant, but underneath it, sharp. Elena didn't stand, didn't move. She simply met her gaze. Yes. Jessica tilted her head slightly, studying her. I've heard so much, she said. A pause. Then, but I expected more. The words were soft, but precise. Designed to land, and they did, just not the way Jessica expected. Elena's expression didn't change, didn't tighten, didn't react. She just looked at her, calm, unmoved. Marcus chuckled lightly. Jessica has a point, he said. You never really made an effort. Jessica smiled, pleased. I mean, look at you, she added, gesturing subtly. You don't even try to keep up. Elena's gaze flicked briefly between them. Not hurt, not threatened, just observing. Keep up with what? She asked. Jessica laughed softly. With him, she said, nodding toward Marcus. With this life. Marcus leaned back slightly, enjoying the moment. She fits, he said. Simple, direct, and cutting. Jessica's smile widened just a fraction. Elena nodded slowly. I can see that, she said. And again. No emotion, no resistance, just acknowledgement, which made the entire exchange uncomfortable, because they were expecting friction, reaction, something to justify their position. Instead, they got calm. Jessica crossed her arms lightly. You're very quiet, she said. Elena tilted her head slightly. Does that bother you? Jessica blinked once, just once, then recovered. Not at all, she replied. It just makes things easier. Elena's lips curved faintly. Easier for who? Jessica didn't answer immediately, because now, the conversation wasn't going where she expected. Marcus stepped in. Let's not complicate this, he said. Jessica is part of my future. There it was. Clear, public, final. Elena looked at him. Steady. And I'm not. Marcus didn't hesitate. No. Silence followed. Not heavy, not tense. Just definitive. Elena nodded once. Understood. Jessica shifted slightly, something in her posture tightening, because this wasn't how it was supposed to feel. There was no victory in silence, no satisfaction in calm, just something she couldn't quite define, and that made her uneasy. Marcus gestured toward the document again. "Sign it," he said. "Let's move forward." Elena looked at the paper, then at Jessica, then back at Marcus, and for the first time, something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. Her lips curved, slowly, deliberately. Not a soft smile, not a polite one. Something else, something sharper, colder, controlled. The kind of smile that doesn't ask for approval. It announces something, and suddenly, the room didn't feel the same. Because that smile, it didn't belong to someone who had lost. It belonged to someone who knew. The game wasn't over, not even close. Elena reached for the pen, finally, not rushed, not hesitant, just intentional. Marcus relaxed slightly. Of course, this was how it ended. Clean, simple, predictable. Jessica leaned against the table, watching closely, interested now, because this was the moment that confirmed everything. Elena placed the tip of the pen against the paper, paused, then looked up. Marcus. He met her gaze. "What?" Elena held the pen lightly between her fingers. "Watch carefully." A small statement, but precise. Marcus frowned slightly. "For what?" Elena didn't answer. She simply signed. Her name flowed across the page. Clean, controlled, final. Richard leaned forward immediately, collecting the document. "Excellent," he said. "That concludes." "Does it?" Elena interrupted softly. Richard paused. Marcus's expression tightened again. "What now?" he asked. Elena set the pen down, folded her hands neatly in front of her, and looked at him, not with emotion, not with hesitation, but with clarity. "That depends on what you think you just ended," she said. Marcus stared at her, because something in her tone didn't match the moment. "You signed the agreement," he said. "Yes," Elena replied. A beat, then, but not the truth. Silence, heavy, unavoidable. Jessica shifted slightly. "What is she talking about?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer, because for the first time, he wasn't entirely sure. Elena stood slowly, not dramatic, not rushed, just rising, and as she did, that smile returned, not wide, not obvious, but unmistakable, sharp, controlled, predatory. The kind of smile that appears when someone sees the outcome before anyone else does. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Elena met his gaze, and this time, she didn't hold back. "I remembered," she said, a simple answer, but devastating, because memory, when paired with truth, becomes power, and Marcus had just signed away control of a narrative he didn't fully understand. "Tell me something. What's more dangerous than someone who's been underestimated, someone who stayed silent long enough to let you believe you had already won? Stay with me, because what comes next isn't just a reversal, it's a reckoning." The ballroom doors opened again, but this time, the sound of rain came with it. Soft at first, then louder, a steady rhythm tapping against the stone outside, like the night itself had decided to witness what was happening inside. People shifted, glancing toward the entrance. The air changed, cooler, sharper, and suddenly, the polished perfection of the room didn't feel as controlled as it did minutes ago. Marcus stepped forward, irritation still lingering on his face from Elena's last words. "I don't have time for this," he said. "Whatever you think you're doing." Elena didn't respond. She was looking at the floor, at the coins, scattered, shining under the lights. Marcus followed her gaze, and something about that annoyed him even more. "Still thinking about those?" he said, a faint smirk forming. "If you want them, pick them up." A few people chuckled again, not loudly, but enough. Because they needed to, because aligning with power felt safer than questioning it. Elena stepped forward. The sound of her heels was soft against the marble, measured, deliberate. She stopped just short of the coins, looked down at them. Then, she bent, Slowly, not rushed, not humiliated, just controlled. The room leaned in again, because this was what they expected. The final image, the woman reduced, the story completed. Marcus watched, satisfied. Jessica folded her arms lightly, a small smile playing on her lips. "This is exactly what I meant," she whispered to him. "She doesn't belong here." Marcus didn't reply. He didn't need to. The scene spoke for itself. Elena reached toward the floor, her fingers hovering just above the coins, paused, and in that pause, something shifted again. Because this wasn't hesitation, it was choice. She picked up one coin, turned it slightly between her fingers, examined it, then let it fall. The sound echoed, sharp, intentional, and suddenly, the moment didn't feel the same anymore. Marcus's smirk faded slightly. "What are you doing?" he asked. Elena straightened slowly, not holding anything, not taking anything, just rising. "I'm deciding," she said. The rain outside grew heavier, louder, almost like a curtain falling between what had just happened and what was about to. Marcus frowned. "Deciding what?" Elena met his gaze. "What this is worth." A quiet statement, but it landed, because now, the coins weren't the point anymore. Value was, and Marcus had just assigned a price to something he didn't fully understand. The thunder rolled faintly in the distance, and for the first time, the room didn't feel entirely on his side. The headlights appeared again, brighter now against the rain, cutting through it with ease. The Rolls-Royce didn't stop abruptly. It glided, smooth, effortless, like it wasn't affected by anything around it. The doors at the entrance remained open. No one moved to close them, because no one wanted to miss what was happening next. The car came to a perfect halt, not rushed, not forced, precise. Marcus turned slightly, his attention drawn despite himself. Jessica leaned forward a fraction. "What is this?" she murmured. No one answered, because no one knew. The driver stepped out first, calm, professional. His movements weren't exaggerated, but they carried weight, because they suggested something important was about to happen. He walked around the car, opened the rear door, and stepped back, waiting, not impatiently, but with certainty. A pause followed, not empty, but deliberate, the kind that builds attention without asking for it. Elena didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to, because she already knew. Marcus, however, stepped closer, trying to regain control of a moment that was slipping from his grasp. "Whoever this is," he said, his voice low, "this isn't the place." The man stepped out, and the sentence died, not because Marcus chose to stop, because something about the presence that just emerged made continuing feel unnecessary. The man adjusted his coat slightly, looked around once, not impressed, not curious, just aware. Then his gaze landed on Elena, and stayed there. Jessica frowned. "Do you know him?" she asked Marcus. Marcus didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't, and that alone was a problem. Because in Marcus's world, he knew everyone who mattered, or at least believed he did. The man began to walk forward, each step measured, unhurried, and with every step, the balance in the room shifted further. Marcus straightened, trying to reclaim his position. "This is private property," he said. "If you're looking for someone." The man didn't stop, didn't respond, just kept walking. And that silence, that lack of acknowledgement, it said more than words could, because it placed Marcus outside the moment, and for someone like him, that was unacceptable. "Excuse me," Marcus said, stepping forward, his tone sharper now. The man finally stopped, but not because of Marcus, because he had reached Elena, and then he inclined his head, not deeply, not submissively, but respectfully. "Miss Elena," he said, and just like that, the room shifted again, because titles matter, and he had just given her one that carried weight Marcus hadn't recognized. Marcus's jaw tightened. "What is going on?" he demanded. The man finally turned to him, and for a brief moment, their eyes met, Not equal, not balanced, just measured. And Marcus felt it. That subtle difference, that unspoken hierarchy. This concerns her, the man said calmly. Not aggressive, not defensive, just clear. Marcus let out a short breath. You're in my building, he replied. The man's expression didn't change. Are you certain of that? He asked, a quiet question. But it landed like a challenge, because certainty, when questioned at the right moment, becomes doubt, and Marcus was beginning to feel it. The rain softened, not completely, but enough that the sound faded into the background, as if the world itself was giving space to what was about to happen. The man stepped closer to Elena, and then he bowed, not slightly, not casually. A full, deliberate bow, respect, clear, undeniable. The room froze, because this didn't fit, not with the version of Elena they had just witnessed, not with the narrative Marcus had built. Jessica's expression faltered. What is this? She whispered. Marcus didn't answer, because his attention was locked on one thing. Elena, the woman who had just been told she was worth nothing, now being treated like someone who commanded respect without asking for it. The man straightened slowly, reached into his coat, and pulled out the envelope. The same one, the one Elena had already opened, but this time, it wasn't about what was inside. It was about what it represented. He extended it again, not as an offering, but as confirmation, and then he spoke. Your father sends his regards. The words landed, heavy, precise, unavoidable, and suddenly, the entire room shifted. Because this wasn't random, this wasn't coincidence, this was connection. Marcus's expression changed, not dramatically, but clearly. Your father? He repeated. Elena didn't answer immediately. She held the man's gaze for a moment, then nodded once. Acknowledgement, nothing more. Jessica stepped back slightly. Marcus, she said, her voice uncertain now. But Marcus didn't hear her, because something was clicking into place, slowly, uncomfortably. Pieces that hadn't mattered before, now did. The late nights, the quiet corrections, the things Elena had known without explanation, the things she had fixed without recognition, the things he had dismissed. What is this? He asked again. But this time, the question wasn't controlled, it was searching. Elena finally turned to him, fully, and for the first time, she didn't look like someone standing in his shadow. She looked like someone standing in her own. You never asked, she said. A simple answer, but devastating, because it was true. Marcus had never asked who she was, only what she could do for him. The man stepped back slightly, giving her space again, because this moment was hers, not his. And the room? The room was no longer watching her fall. It was watching her rise. Marcus took a step back, just one, but it was enough. Enough to show something had changed. You're telling me, he started, then stopped, because the sentence didn't make sense anymore, not with the information he now had, not with the shift happening right in front of him. Elena watched him, calm, unrushed, because she had already reached the conclusion he was just beginning to understand. You built your company on my support, she said, not accusing, not emotional, just factual. Marcus shook his head slightly. No, he said. I built it. Elena didn't argue. She didn't need to. Instead, she gestured lightly toward the man beside her. Ask him, she said. Marcus looked at the man, then back at Elena, and for the first time, there was hesitation. Who are you? He asked. The man answered simply, someone who ensures agreements are honored. Marcus frowned. What agreements? Elena stepped forward slightly, closing the distance, not aggressively, but intentionally. The ones you never read carefully, she said. A beat. Then, the ones you signed when you thought you were the only one winning. Silence. Heavy, because now, this wasn't about emotion. It was about structure, ownership, control, and Marcus was no longer certain where he stood in any of it. Jessica looked between them, confusion replacing confidence. Marcus, what is she talking about? She asked, but Marcus didn't respond, because he was looking at Elena, really looking, and seeing something he hadn't before, not weakness, not silence, but strategy. And realization, it doesn't arrive loudly. It settles, slowly, uncomfortably, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Elena turned slightly toward the entrance. The rain had almost stopped now. The air felt different, cleaner, lighter, like something had been cleared. She took a step forward, then another, not toward Marcus, not toward the past, toward the car and the future. The man moved to open the door again, waiting, respectfully. Elena paused just before stepping inside, then glanced back. Not long, not dramatically, just enough. Enough for Marcus to see her expression, that same smile, sharp, controlled, certain, not revenge, not anger, just knowing. And in that moment, Marcus understood one thing: this wasn't over, not even close. The interior of the Rolls-Royce was silent, not empty, just controlled. Elena sat back, her gaze forward, her posture relaxed in a way that didn't match the chaos she had just walked away from. The man sat across from her, composed, observant. "You're late," he said. Elena didn't look at him. "I needed to finish something," she replied. A pause. Then, "You handled it well," he added. Elena's lips curved faintly. "I handled it how it needed to be handled." The car moved smoothly through the wet streets. No rush, no urgency, because the destination was already waiting. "Marcus didn't know," the man said. Elena shook her head slightly. "He never asked." The same answer, the same truth, and it had cost him. The car turned, approaching a private airstrip. Lights lined the path ahead. A jet waited, engine low. "Ready." Elena glanced at it briefly, then back ahead. "Is everything in place?" she asked. The man nodded. "Yes." A beat. Then, just as you planned, the jet door closed behind her, and with it, everything she had been before. The interior was quiet, luxurious, but not overwhelming. Just precise, intentional. A woman approached her. Professional, calm. "We've prepared everything," she said. Elena nodded once. "Thank you." She was led to a private suite. A wardrobe waited, carefully selected, not excessive, not loud, but powerful. Elena paused for a moment, looking at it, not admiring, not hesitating, just acknowledging. Then she reached for the first piece, changed, slowly, deliberately, each movement shedding something, not her identity, but the version of it Marcus had believed. When she stepped out, she didn't look different. She looked revealed, the same Elena, but without limitation, without reduction, without being placed in someone else's shadow. The man, Sebastian, stood near the main cabin. He turned as she approached, and for the first time, he smiled, not impressed, not surprised, just recognizing. "This suits you," he said. Elena met his gaze. "It always did," she replied. The jet lifted smoothly into the night, city lights fading beneath them, distance growing, perspective shifting. Elena sat across from Sebastian. A tablet rested on the table between them. Data, numbers, agreements, everything Marcus thought he controlled. "You acquired it quietly," Sebastian said. Elena nodded. "Piece by piece." Sebastian leaned back slightly. He never noticed. Elena's expression remained calm. He wasn't looking. A beat. Then, he was too focused on being seen. Sebastian nodded. That made it easier. Elena glanced at the screen. "His debt structure is fragile," she said. He expanded too quickly. Sebastian tapped the table lightly. "And now?" Elena met his gaze. "Now, it belongs to me." Simple, clear, final. Not revenge, not emotion, just strategy. Sebastian studied her for a moment. "You planned this long before tonight," he said. Elena didn't deny it. "I prepared," she replied. A subtle difference, but an important one. Because preparation is what turns opportunity into control. The jet stabilized, cruising smoothly above everything Marcus thought defined his world. Elena looked out the window briefly, then back at Sebastian. "He believes he built everything," she said. Sebastian nodded. "He did," he replied. "With your foundation." Elena's gaze remained steady. "And now he'll learn the difference." A pause. Then, "When?" Sebastian asked. Elena's lips curved slightly, not wide, not dramatic, but certain. "Soon. Because timing is everything." And Marcus? Marcus had just lost control of it. "Tell me something. What happens when the person you dismissed becomes the one holding your future?" "Stay with me, because what comes next is where everything changes." The restaurant was the kind of place Marcus never waited for. Glass walls overlooking the city, soft lighting designed to flatter everyone inside it. A quiet hum of conversations from people who mattered, or at least believed they did. Marcus walked in with Jessica at his side. Confident, controlled, back to normal. At least, that's what he told himself. "Try not to look so tense," Jessica murmured, adjusting her clutch. "People are staring." Marcus didn't slow his pace. "They always do," he replied. The host greeted them with a polite smile. "Good evening, Mr. Hale." Marcus gave a brief nod. "Table for two." The host's fingers moved across the tablet. A pause. Then, a slight shift in his expression, almost unnoticeable. "Almost." "I'm sorry," the host said, his tone still polite, "but your reservation has been canceled." Marcus blinked once, not confused, just processing. "That's not possible," he said. "I booked this days ago." The host nodded. "Yes, sir, I can see that," he replied. "However, the reservation was withdrawn this afternoon." "By who?" Marcus asked, his voice tightening slightly. The host hesitated. Then, "By the account holder." Marcus's jaw set. "I am the account holder." Another pause. The host glanced at the screen again, then back at Marcus. "I'm afraid the authorization no longer reflects that." Jessica shifted beside him. "What does that even mean?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer her. His focus remained on the host. "Fix it," he said. A simple instruction, the kind that usually worked. The host maintained his composure. "I'm sorry, sir. I can't override the system." A silence followed. Not long, but enough. Enough for people nearby to notice, to glance over, to recognize. Because Marcus Hale didn't get denied. Not here, not anywhere. Jessica leaned closer. "Marcus, this is embarrassing," she whispered. Marcus exhaled slowly, controlled. "Find us another table," he said to the host. The host nodded politely. "We're fully booked tonight." Another pause. Then, "If you'd like, I can recommend." "No." Marcus cut in. Sharp, final. The host stepped back, slightly, respectful, but unmoved. Because this wasn't about attitude. It was about access. And Marcus, for the first time, didn't have it. Jessica crossed her arms lightly. "This is ridiculous," she said. "We shouldn't even be standing here." Marcus turned slightly. "We're leaving," he said. They walked out, not rushed, but not composed either. The doors closed behind them, and the city air felt colder than before. Jessica let out a breath. "I told you something felt off," she said. "Ever since that woman showed up." "Don't," Marcus snapped. She stopped, surprised, because he didn't usually cut her off like that. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "It's a system error," he said. "That's all." Jessica didn't look convinced. "System errors don't cancel reservations at places like that," she replied. Marcus didn't answer, because deep down, he knew that too, and something about it didn't sit right. "Tell me something. What happens when the doors that always opened for you start closing? Stay with me, because this is just the beginning." The next restaurant wasn't as exclusive, but it was still respectable. Still the kind of place Marcus didn't expect resistance. They were seated quickly this time. No issues, no questions. Jessica relaxed slightly. "See?" she said. "That other place just didn't know how to handle their system." Marcus nodded faintly, but his attention wasn't fully there. Something lingered, something unresolved. The waiter approached. Ready to order? Marcus didn't hesitate. Bring the usual, he said. The waiter nodded and left. Jessica leaned back in her chair. You really need to stop letting small things get to you, she said. It doesn't suit you. Marcus gave a brief glance. I'm not bothered. Jessica smiled slightly. Good. The food arrived. Perfectly plated. Everything as expected. For a moment, things felt normal again. Controlled. Predictable. Marcus took a sip of his drink. Jessica scrolled through her phone. I have an event this weekend, she said. You should come. It'll be good for your image. Marcus nodded absently. Maybe. Time passed. Dinner finished. The bill arrived. Marcus didn't look at it. He simply placed his card on the tray. Routine, automatic. The waiter took it. Returned a few moments later. But this time, there was a hesitation. Sir, the waiter began. Marcus looked up. Yes? I'm sorry, the waiter said carefully, but your card was declined. Silence. Jessica blinked. What? Marcus frowned. That's not possible, he said. The waiter nodded slightly. You can try again, sir. Marcus took the card back, looked at it, as if the problem might reveal itself, then handed it over again. Run it. The waiter did. Returned. Same expression. I'm sorry, sir. Jessica leaned forward. Use another one, she said. Marcus reached into his wallet, pulled out a second card, then a third, each one handed over. Each one returned, declined. The air around their table shifted, subtle, but noticeable, because now people were looking, not openly, but enough. Jessica's voice dropped. Marcus. He didn't respond. He was staring at the tray, at the cards, at the situation that didn't make sense. This is a mistake, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Jessica reached into her bag. I'll just cover it, she said quickly. Marcus's hand moved instantly, stopping her. No. The word was sharp. Final. Jessica froze. The waiter shifted uncomfortably. Sir, if there's another form of... I said no, Marcus snapped. The room went quiet around them. Not completely, but enough. Enough that the moment stretched. Uncomfortable, unfamiliar. Marcus exhaled slowly, then reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and froze, because what he saw didn't match reality, or rather, it revealed it. The balances weren't there. The accounts, restricted, locked, unavailable. A cold realization settled in, not sudden, but heavy. Jessica leaned closer. What is it? She asked. Marcus didn't answer, because the answer was worse than the question. Tell me something. What happens when money stops responding to you, the way people always did? Stay with me, because the ground beneath Marcus is starting to move. Marcus didn't speak on the drive home, didn't answer Jessica's questions, didn't explain, because he didn't have an explanation yet. Only a problem, and problems needed control. The moment they stepped into the penthouse, he moved straight to his office. Laptop open, multiple screens lighting up the room. Jessica followed, concerned now. What's going on? She asked. Marcus didn't look at her. Nothing, he said. A lie. And not a convincing one. He logged into another account. Same result. Restricted. He tried another. Same. Each attempt more urgent than the last. Marcus, Jessica said, her tone sharper now. Talk to me. He exhaled, still not looking at her. My accounts are frozen. The words landed. Jessica blinked. What do you mean frozen? Marcus finally turned. I mean, I don't have access. Jessica let out a short laugh. That's not possible. Marcus didn't respond, because that was the problem. It wasn't supposed to be, but it was. He grabbed his phone, dialed a number, waited. Fix it, he said the moment the call connected. A pause, then his expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. What do you mean, review? He asked. Another pause. His jaw tightened. I don't care about protocol, he said. Restore access. More silence. Then, he ended the call. Jessica stepped closer. What did they say? Marcus ran a hand through his hair. They're reviewing account activity. Jessica frowned. For what? Marcus didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Or rather, he was starting to, slowly, uncomfortably. This doesn't make sense, Jessica said. You didn't do anything wrong. Marcus looked at her, and for a moment, he almost said it, almost connected the dots out loud. But he didn't. Instead, it's temporary, he said. Jessica nodded. Of course it is. But her tone didn't carry the same certainty anymore, because things were adding up. The restaurant, the cards, now this, and suddenly, the night didn't feel like an accident. It felt like a pattern. And Marcus? Marcus was right in the middle of it. Morning came, but it didn't bring clarity. It brought calls, messages, problems. Marcus stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean they pulled out? He demanded. A pause. Then, on what grounds? More silence. His expression hardened. This is a breach, he said. They can't just walk away. Another pause. Then, they already did. The line went quiet. Marcus lowered the phone slowly. Jessica stood near the doorway, watching, waiting. What now? She asked. Marcus didn't answer, because another call came in. He picked it up. Yes? A different voice, more urgent. Employees are asking questions, the voice said. There's talk about funding issues. Marcus's jaw tightened. Tell them it's under control. Is it? The voice asked. A dangerous question. Marcus didn't respond immediately, because certainty was slipping. Handle it, he said, and ended the call. Jessica stepped closer. This is getting out of hand, she said. You need to fix it. Marcus turned sharply. I am fixing it. His voice was louder now, sharper. Jessica stepped back slightly. Then why does it keep getting worse? She asked. Silence. Because that was the problem. Each issue wasn't isolated. They were connected, stacking, building, pressure rising. Marcus grabbed his phone again, scrolled, checked, everything, and every result pointed to the same thing, loss of control. Jessica crossed her arms. I didn't sign up for this, she said. Marcus looked at her. What is that supposed to mean? Jessica held his gaze. It means I expected stability, she said. Not whatever this is. Marcus exhaled slowly, trying to regain composure. You have it, he said. Jessica shook her head. No, she replied. I don't. A pause. Then, if this keeps going, I'm not staying around to watch it fall apart. The words landed, sharp, clear, and for the first time, Marcus felt it. Not just pressure, not just problems, but isolation, because the people who stood beside you at your highest don't always stay when things start to break. Tell me something. What happens when everything you built starts slipping through your hands and no one stays long enough to help you hold it together? Stay with me, because Marcus hasn't hit the bottom yet, but he's getting closer. And the fall? It's far from over. The office didn't feel the same anymore. Not because anything visible had changed, but because something underneath it had. Marcus stood in front of the main display screen, watching lines of data flicker in and out like a system struggling to breathe. This makes no sense, he said, his voice tight, controlled, but cracking at the edges. Across the room, a few developers sat frozen at their stations, eyes darting between their monitors and each other. No one wanted to be the first to say it, because saying it would make it real. Marcus turned sharply. Why is it failing? He demanded. No answer, just silence. Heavy, avoidant. Marcus stepped closer to one of the developers. You told me this system was stable, he said. The developer swallowed. It was, he replied carefully. Then explain this, Marcus snapped, pointing at the screen. Because from where I'm standing, everything is breaking at once. Another pause. Then, we're trying to trace the source, the developer said. Marcus let out a short, humorless breath. Trying? He repeated. That's your answer? Before the developer could respond, another alert flashed across the screen. Red, critical. A module had failed. Then another, one after the other. Not random, not scattered, sequential, targeted. Marcus stared at it. Because now, this wasn't a glitch. This was structural. Restart the system, he ordered. We've tried that, another voice said from the back. Marcus turned. David, one of the earliest developers. Quiet, observant, the kind of person Marcus rarely noticed, until something went wrong. Then try it again, Marcus said. David didn't move. It won't fix it. The room went still. Because David wasn't guessing. He sounded certain. Marcus stepped toward him. What do you mean it won't fix it? David held his gaze. Because the issue isn't external, he said. A pause. Then, it's internal. The words landed. Hard. Marcus frowned. That doesn't make sense, he said. We built this system. David didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He simply said, did we? And just like that, something shifted, because doubt, once introduced, doesn't leave easily. Marcus stared at him. What are you implying? David glanced at the screen, then back at Marcus. I'm saying, he replied, this system isn't failing. A beat, then, it's shutting down. Silence, heavy, because that distinction changed everything. Tell me something. What happens when the foundation you trusted starts rejecting you? Stay with me, because Marcus is about to learn something he never prepared for. Marcus moved quickly now, faster than before, not out of confidence, out of urgency. Pull the backup, he ordered. One of the developers nodded, typing rapidly. A few seconds passed. Then, it's not here. Marcus turned. What do you mean it's not here? The developer hesitated. The backup files, he said. They're incomplete. Marcus's expression hardened. That's not possible, he replied. We have redundant systems. David stepped forward slightly. They're all missing the same segments, he said. Marcus looked between them. No, he said. Check again. They did. Same result. Gaps. Not random. Specific. Critical. What segments? Marcus demanded. David didn't answer immediately. He walked over to the main screen, typed something, pulled up a structure map, highlighted sections. These, he said. Marcus stared at the display, because what David had highlighted wasn't minor, it wasn't peripheral, it was core, the central logic, the decision-making architecture, the part of the system that made everything else work. That's impossible, Marcus said again. But this time, the words carried less certainty. David's voice remained steady. Without this, he said, the system doesn't function. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then restore it. David looked at him, and for the first time, there was something in his expression, not fear, not confusion, just clarity. We can't. Marcus stepped closer. Why not? David held his gaze. Because we don't have it. Silence. Because now, the problem wasn't failure. It was absence. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. This doesn't just disappear, he said. Data doesn't vanish. David nodded slightly. You're right. A pause. Then, it was removed. The words settled slowly. But when they did, they hit. Marcus's eyes narrowed. By who? David didn't answer right away, because the answer wasn't simple. Not in what it said, but in what it meant. Check the logs, Marcus said. They did. Seconds passed. Then, there's no record, one of the developers said. Marcus let out a sharp breath. That's not possible. David spoke again. It is, if the person who removed it built the system. A quiet statement, but devastating, because it meant this wasn't a breach. It wasn't an attack. It was control. Tell me something. What happens when the one who built something decides to take it back? Stay with me, because Marcus is about to understand something far worse than loss. Marcus turned slowly, his gaze locking onto David. What are you saying? David didn't hesitate this time, because hesitation would only delay the inevitable. I'm saying, he began, the part that's missing. He gestured toward the screen. Isn't something we created. Marcus's expression darkened. That's not true, he said. I designed this system. David held his gaze. No, he replied quietly. You didn't. Silence. Sharp. Immediate. Because that wasn't a suggestion. It was a contradiction. Marcus stepped forward. You're crossing a line. David didn't move. I'm telling you the truth. A beat, then. She wrote the core architecture. The words landed. Clear, unavoidable. Marcus shook his head. No, David didn't argue. He continued. She designed the adaptive logic, he said. The learning model, the decision layers. Each word, a piece, each piece, a crack. Marcus's voice hardened. That's not possible. David's tone remained calm. It is. Marcus took another step. You expect me to believe that Elena built this? David met his gaze. I know she did. Silence filled the room. Because now, this wasn't theory. It was revelation. Marcus's breathing slowed. Not from calm. From control. Forced. How would you know? He asked. David's answer came without hesitation. Because I saw it. A pause. Then, every night, the room stilled. David's voice didn't rise, didn't dramatize. It simply laid out the truth. You'd leave, he said, and she'd stay. Marcus's expression shifted, slightly. She'd go through the code, David continued. Fix what wasn't working. Improve what you couldn't stabilize. Marcus didn't interrupt, because something inside him was starting to connect. She never put her name on anything, David added. Never took credit. A beat, then, but everything we're missing right now. He gestured to the screen again. Came from her. Silence, because now, the picture was clear. Not fully, but enough. Enough to see what had been overlooked. Marcus let out a slow breath. No, he said again. But this time, it sounded different. Less like denial, more like resistance. David took a step closer. You thought you built the brain of this company, he said. A pause. Then, she was the brain. The words settled. Heavy, final, and Marcus felt it. That shift, that realization, not loud, not immediate, but undeniable. Tell me something. What happens when everything you believed about yourself turns out to be incomplete? Stay with me, because this is only half of the truth. Marcus stood still, not moving, not speaking, because movement required certainty, and certainty was gone. David watched him, not with satisfaction, not with judgment, just honesty. There's more, he said. Marcus didn't respond, but he didn't stop him either. She didn't just build the system, David continued. A pause, then she funded it. Marcus's head snapped up. What? David nodded. The early capital, he said. The infrastructure, the initial scaling, each word. Another crack. Marcus shook his head. No, he said. That came from investors. David held his gaze. Look deeper, he replied. Marcus didn't move, because now, he didn't trust what he'd find. David continued anyway. The first investment account, he said, it wasn't yours. A beat, then. It was routed through a private entity. Marcus's voice dropped. Whose? David didn't hesitate. Hers. Silence. Absolute. Because that changed everything. Not just the system, not just the company. Everything. Marcus took a step back, then another, because the room suddenly felt different. Smaller, tighter. You're saying. He began, then stopped, because the sentence didn't make sense anymore. Not the way he thought it did. David finished it for him. I'm saying you didn't just lose access, he said. A pause. Then, you lost what was never fully yours. The words landed. Final. Clear. Unavoidable. Marcus looked at the screen again. At the empty sections. At the missing core. At the absence that now made sense. And for the first time, he understood, not everything, but enough. Enough to feel it. That shift from control to realization. David's voice softened slightly. She didn't just leave, he said. A beat. Then, she took the brain of your company with her. Silence, because there was nothing left to argue, nothing left to deny, just truth. And the weight of it. Marcus stood there, not as the man who built an empire, but as the man who had misunderstood it. And now, he had to face what that meant. Tell me something. What happens when the foundation you stood on was never yours to begin with? Stay with me, because Marcus hasn't just lost control. He's lost identity, and what comes next is far worse. The cameras were already set before Marcus walked in. Rows of lenses pointed forward like silent witnesses, waiting for something to break. Microphones lined the podium, logos from major media networks layered across them. Not decoration, pressure. Marcus adjusted his cuffs slowly before stepping into position. Controlled, measured. He had done this before, handled questions, directed narratives, turned uncertainty into dominance. This was his space. Or at least, it used to be. Jessica stood off to the side, arms crossed lightly, her expression tight. This better fix things, she muttered under her breath. Marcus didn't look at her. It will, he said. Confidence, practiced, but thinner than before. The room quieted as he approached the podium. A few flashes went off, then more, rapid, blinding. He placed his hands on either side of the stand, looked up, and began. Thank you all for being here, he said. I'll keep this brief. A pause. He scanned the room, measured the energy. It has come to my attention that there have been misunderstandings regarding my company and recent developments. Careful wording, neutral, strategic. I want to clarify that all operations remain under control, he continued, and any speculation about instability is inaccurate. A few journalists exchanged glances, not impressed, not convinced. Marcus pressed forward. My team is addressing minor technical disruptions, he said. Nothing more. A hand shot up. Marcus pointed. Yes. The journalist didn't need to. Are you referring to the system failures reported this morning? She asked. Marcus nodded once. As I said, minor. Another journalist leaned forward. Then why are multiple investors withdrawing support? Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. That's part of normal business fluctuations, he replied. The room didn't react. No nods, no agreement. Just watching. Marcus continued. I want to assure everyone that the company remains strong, he said, and fully operational. Another hand, this time, more direct. Can you confirm whether Elena Hale had any involvement in the development of your core technology? The question landed. Sharp, unexpected. Marcus didn't hesitate. No, he said, immediate, firm, because hesitation would suggest doubt, and doubt was dangerous. But something shifted in the room. Not loudly, not dramatically, just subtly, because the question itself had already planted something, and Marcus had just responded without understanding how deep it went. Tell me something. What happens when you try to control a story? That's already moved beyond you? Stay with me, because this room, it's no longer his. The same journalist leaned forward again. This time, she stood, not aggressively, but with purpose. You said she had no involvement, she continued. Are you certain about that? Marcus met her gaze. Yes. A beat. Then, absolutely. The journalist nodded slowly, as if acknowledging the answer, but not accepting it. Then how do you explain internal reports suggesting she contributed to your system architecture? Marcus's expression tightened. There are no such reports, he said. The journalist didn't back down. Multiple sources say otherwise, she replied. Marcus's tone sharpened. Sources can be wrong. The journalist tilted her head slightly. And executives can lie. A ripple passed through the room. Not loud, but enough to shift the tone. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Be careful with your words, he said. The journalist didn't flinch. I am, she replied. A pause. Then, are you denying that Elena Hale had access to your core systems? Marcus exhaled. She had limited exposure, he said. Nothing significant. The journalist didn't look convinced. In that case, she said. How do you explain the system collapse occurring immediately after her departure? Silence. Brief, but noticeable. Marcus recovered quickly. Correlation isn't causation, he said. The journalist nodded. Then, let's talk about causation. Another pause. Then, is it true that critical portions of your system are now missing? Marcus's grip tightened on the podium. That information is inaccurate. The journalist stepped forward slightly. Then why are your developers reporting gaps in the core architecture? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Because now, the questions weren't surface level. They were targeted, informed, and that meant something had already leaked. Where are you getting this information? He asked. The journalist's expression didn't change. From people who built it. The words landed, heavy, because now, the narrative wasn't his anymore. Marcus straightened. This line of questioning is inappropriate, he said. The journalist held his gaze. No, she replied. It's necessary. Silence filled the room again. Because this wasn't an interview anymore. It was exposure. And Marcus was no longer controlling it. A phone buzzed. Then another. Then several. The sound spread through the room like a ripple. Journalists glanced down at their screens. Brows furrowing. Expressions shifting. Marcus noticed. What is it? He asked. No one answered immediately. Because they were reading, processing, verifying, and what they saw changed everything. The same journalist looked up first. Her expression now different. Not questioning. Certain. It's already out, she said. Marcus frowned. What is? She held up her phone. Financial records, she replied. Ownership structures. Development logs. A pause. Then, your company isn't structured the way you claimed. The room stirred, voices rising slightly. Questions forming faster than answers. Marcus shook his head. That's false. But his voice didn't carry the same weight. The journalist stepped forward again. It shows that early funding came from a private entity linked to Elena Hale. Another pause. Then, and that key intellectual property is registered under her name. Silence. Absolute. Because now, this wasn't speculation. It was documentation. Marcus's mind moved quickly. Too quickly. Trying to find an angle, a response, a way to regain control. That's a misinterpretation, he said. But even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't enough. The journalist didn't argue. She didn't need to. Then clarify it, she said. Marcus opened his mouth, then stopped. Because clarity required truth, and truth was no longer in his favor. Around the room more voices rose. More questions. More pressure. What percentage does she own? Did you misrepresent your company? Were investors misled? Each question, another crack. Each moment, less control. Jessica stepped forward slightly, her voice low. Marcus, fix this. But Marcus couldn't, not the way he used to, because this wasn't a situation he could talk his way out of. This was structure, evidence, reality, and it had already shifted. Tell me something. What happens when the story you built your reputation on gets rewritten in real time? Stay with me. Because Marcus isn't just losing control now. He's losing belief. The press conference didn't end. It collapsed. Questions overlapped. Voices rose. Cameras moved closer. Not to capture authority, but failure. Marcus stepped back from the podium. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to show something had changed. His phone vibrated again and again. Notifications flooding in. He glanced down and saw it. The shift, not in one place, everywhere. Social media, news feeds, public opinion, all moving in the same direction. Fast, uncontrolled. A headline flashed. Tech mogul's empire built on hidden genius. Another, Elena Hale, the mind behind the machine. And then, the trend. Short, sharp, unavoidable. A-team her. Jessica grabbed his arm. Marcus, people are talking, she said. He didn't respond, because he could see it. Scrolling. Endless. Support. Speculation. Rewriting everything he thought people believed. She was the real one. He took credit. This changes everything. The momentum wasn't subtle. It was overwhelming. Jessica's grip tightened. "This is bad," she said. Marcus finally looked up. At the room, at the cameras, at the people who were no longer waiting for his version of the story. They already had one. And it didn't include him the way he expected. "Say something," Jessica urged. Marcus stepped forward again, tried to regain position, tried to speak. But the words didn't come the same way, because confidence requires certainty, and certainty was gone. This is being taken out of context," he said. But even as he spoke, the room didn't settle, didn't listen, because the context had already changed. A journalist spoke over him. "Is it true you publicly humiliated her before filing for divorce?" Another voice. "Did you knowingly present yourself as the sole creator?" More questions. Faster, sharper. Marcus raised his voice slightly. "Enough." But it didn't carry, didn't land, because authority had shifted. Jessica stepped back, slowly, not dramatically, but noticeably. Distance, physical, emotional. Marcus stood alone at the podium, surrounded, exposed, and for the first time, he felt it fully. Not just pressure, not just problems, but something deeper, desperation, because everything he had built was being pulled apart, publicly, and he couldn't stop it. "Tell me something. What happens when the world stops believing in the version of you you spent years creating?" "Stay with me, because this isn't the bottom yet." But Marcus is closer than he's ever been, and what comes next will leave him with nothing to hide behind. The office felt colder than usual, not physically, but structurally, as if something that once held it together had quietly withdrawn. Marcus stood near the desk, phone pressed tightly to his ear. "I need you here," he said. "Now." A pause, then Richard Hale's voice came through, calm as always. "I won't be coming in." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean you won't be coming in?" Silence. Brief, measured. "I mean exactly that," Richard replied. "I'm stepping away from your case." The words didn't land immediately, because Marcus wasn't used to hearing them. "Stepping away?" He repeated. "You work for me." Another pause. Then, "I worked for you," Richard corrected. The distinction cut clean. Marcus's grip tightened. "This is not the time to make statements," he said. "I need legal support." Richard exhaled softly. "You need protection," he replied. "And I can't provide that anymore." Marcus's voice sharpened. "Why not?" Silence. Then, "Because the information that's come out changes everything," Richard said. "Your position isn't defensible the way it was." Marcus stepped forward. "You're my lawyer," he said. "Your job is to defend me." Richard's tone remained steady. "My job is to operate within structure," he replied. "And right now, that structure isn't in your favor." A pause. Then, "Continuing would put me at risk." The words settled, because they carried something Marcus wasn't prepared to face. Distance, separation, abandonment. "You're walking away," Marcus said. Not a question, a realization. Richard didn't deny it. "Yes." Marcus let out a breath. Short, controlled. "You think this is over?" he asked. Richard paused. Then, "I think it's beyond what you can control." A quiet answer, but devastating. Marcus's voice dropped. "Who's behind this?" Another pause. Then, "You already know." The line went silent. Call ended. Marcus lowered the phone slowly, because, for the first time, the people who used to stand beside him were stepping away, not gradually, completely. "Tell me something. What happens when even the people paid to protect you decide you're no longer worth the risk?" "Stay with me, because this isn't the worst part. Not yet." Jessica didn't pack loudly. No dramatic movements, no raised voice, just quiet, deliberate, final. Marcus stood in the doorway of the bedroom, watching her. "You're leaving," he said. Jessica didn't turn. "I think that's obvious." Marcus stepped inside. "This is temporary," he said. "Everything will stabilize." Jessica zipped her bag, then turned And this time, her expression didn't carry uncertainty. It carried decision. "No," she said. "It won't." Marcus frowned. "You don't know that." Jessica let out a small breath. "I know enough." She walked past him, placing the bag near the door. "I didn't come into this to deal with collapse," she continued. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This isn't collapse." Jessica looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't see control. She saw strain. "This is exactly that," she said. Marcus stepped closer. "You're overreacting." Jessica shook her head. "No," she replied. "I'm responding." A pause. Then, I aligned myself with someone who had direction. The words were calm, but precise. Marcus's voice dropped. "And now?" Jessica picked up her bag. "Now I don't see it." Silence. Because there was nothing left to soften, nothing left to negotiate. Marcus took a step forward. "So, you're just walking away?" Jessica met his gaze. "Yes." No hesitation, no apology, just clarity. Marcus exhaled slowly. "You don't even want to try?" Jessica adjusted the strap on her shoulder. "Trying only works when there's something stable to stand on," she said. "A beat, then, and right now, there isn't." She walked toward the door, paused briefly, not for him, for herself. Then, "You should figure out what actually happened," she added. A quiet statement, but pointed, because it meant, even she could see it, something deeper, something he didn't fully understand yet. The door opened, then closed, and just like that, Marcus was alone. Not partially, completely. Marcus didn't sit, didn't rest, didn't pause. He moved, from one call to another, from one contact to the next, trying to regain something, anything. "Call me back," he said into the phone. "We need to discuss this." No response. Another number. "We've worked together for years," he said. "Don't make decisions based on rumors." Voicemail. Another call. "This is Marcus," he said. "I expect a return call." Nothing. Each attempt less effective than the last, because the problem wasn't communication, it was reputation. And reputation had already shifted. He stopped, looked at the screen, scrolled through his contacts. Names that used to mean access, power, leverage, now unreachable. One finally picked up. Marcus. Relief. Brief. "I need to meet," Marcus said. "There's been misinformation." "There hasn't," the voice interrupted. Marcus froze. "What?" A pause. Then, "We've reviewed everything," the voice said. "It's not misinformation." Marcus's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake." Another pause. Then, "No," the voice replied. "We already made one." The words landed, because they weren't about the present, they were about the past. The call ended. Marcus lowered the phone again, because now, it wasn't just silence, it was rejection, systematic, complete, and the realization? It settled slowly, like everything else had. He wasn't being ignored, he was being removed. "Tell me something. What happens when every door you once opened decides to stay closed?" Stay with me. Because Marcus is about to face something worse than loss. Absence. The office was empty, not metaphorically, literally. Desks unoccupied, screens dark, chairs pushed back and left exactly where they were, as if people had walked out and never intended to return. Marcus stood in the center of it, still, listening, but there was nothing to hear. No typing, no voices, no movement, just silence. The lights above flickered slightly, not dramatically, just enough to make the emptiness feel heavier. Marcus walked slowly across the room. His footsteps echoed, each one reminding him there was no one left to hear them. He stopped at the main console, looked at the screen, the same system, the same structure, still incomplete, still missing, still not his. He reached out, touched the surface lightly, then pulled his hand back, because there was nothing to interact with, nothing to control, nothing to fix. A breath left him, slow, unsteady, and for the first time, he didn't try to correct it, didn't try to solve it. He just stood there, because there was nothing left to act on. Everything had already moved, shifted, gone. Tell me something. What happens when you lose everything, and there's no one left to witness it? Stay with me, because this isn't the end. It's the moment right before it. The gates were taller than Marcus remembered, or maybe he just felt smaller. Rain fell steadily, soaking through his jacket, his hair, his composure. He didn't stop, didn't hesitate, because hesitation meant accepting what this moment was, and he wasn't ready for that, not yet. The guard stepped forward as he approached. Invitation? One of them asked. Marcus looked up. I'm here to see Elena. The guard didn't move. This is a private event. Marcus stepped closer. Tell her Marcus Hale is here. A pause. Then, no. Simple. Final. Marcus exhaled. I'm not leaving. The guards exchanged a glance. Then one of them stepped aside, not out of respect, out of instruction. The gates opened, and Marcus walked in, not as a guest, not as someone expected, but as someone out of place. The mansion glowed, warm, elegant, alive. Music drifted through the air. Guests moved effortlessly across the space. Confidence, power, presence, and at the center of it, Elena. Marcus saw her before she saw him, standing near the balcony, composed, unreachable, everything about her. Different, not because she had changed, because she was no longer reduced. Sebastian stood nearby, speaking quietly with a group of investors. Marcus stepped forward, slow, uncertain, because this wasn't his world anymore, and he knew it. Elena. Her name left his mouth before he reached her. She turned, slowly, and their eyes met. For a moment, everything stilled. Marcus stepped closer. You need to fix this, he said. No greeting, no hesitation, just urgency. Elena studied him, calm, unmoved. Fix what? She asked. Marcus gestured slightly. Everything, he said. The company, the accounts, this situation. Elena tilted her head slightly. This situation? Marcus stepped closer. Yes. A pause. Then, you caused this. Elena didn't react, didn't deny it. She simply asked, how? Marcus exhaled sharply. You removed critical systems, he said. You froze access. You manipulated. Elena raised a hand slightly, stopping him. I reclaimed what was mine, she said. A quiet correction, but precise. Marcus shook his head. No, he said. That's not how this works. Elena's gaze held his. Isn't it? Silence. Because now, the argument wasn't about action. It was about ownership. Marcus's voice dropped, lower now, less controlled. You're destroying everything, he said. Elena didn't move. No, she replied. I'm revealing it. Marcus took another step. People are losing jobs, he said. Investors are pulling out. This affects more than just us. Elena nodded slightly. It always did, she said. A pause. Then, you just didn't notice. Marcus stared at her, because the conversation wasn't going the way he expected. I built that company, he said. Elena's expression remained steady. You built a structure, she replied. A beat. Then, I built what made it work. Silence. Heavy, because this was the truth he couldn't argue. Marcus's voice softened. Almost. Then help me rebuild it, he said. The words hung, because they weren't a demand anymore. They were a request. Elena looked at him, longer this time, carefully. Then, no. Simple. Final. Marcus's breath caught. You can't just walk away, he said. Elena's gaze didn't shift. I already did. A pause. Then, and you didn't follow. The words landed, because they carried something deeper than accusation. They carried conclusion. Marcus shook his head slowly. You tested me, he said. Elena didn't deny it. I gave you space, she replied. A subtle difference, but important. Marcus's voice dropped further. And I failed. Elena held his gaze. Yes. Silence. Because there was nothing left to soften, nothing left to adjust, just truth and consequence. Marcus looked around, at the people, at the life she now stood in, at the distance between them. You own it, he said. Elena nodded. Yes. A beat. Then. And I've already made my decision. Marcus's expression tightened. What decision? Elena's voice remained calm. I'm shutting it down. The words landed. Final. Unavoidable. Marcus stepped back slightly. Because this was the end. Not gradual, not negotiable. Complete. Tell me something. What happens when the person you underestimated becomes the one who decides your ending? Stay with me, because this story isn't just about loss. It's about truth, and truth always finds its way to the surface. The music behind them continued, soft, refined, untouched by the tension standing between two people who once shared everything, and now shared nothing. Marcus didn't move at first. He stood there, rain still clinging to his clothes, the weight of everything pressing down in a way he couldn't push back anymore. Elena watched him, not cold, not cruel, just certain. Then she gestured lightly toward a small table set near the edge of the balcony. Sit down, she said. The same tone, the same calm control, but now it landed differently. Marcus hesitated, only for a second, because instinct told him to resist, but reality told him something else. He walked over, sat, not as a choice, as a result. Sebastian stepped forward, placing a thin folder on the table between them. Clean, minimal, deliberate. Marcus's eyes dropped to it, then back to Elena. What is this? He asked. Elena didn't answer immediately. She took a seat across from him, composed, untouchable. It's closure, she said. A simple word, but heavy, because closure means something has already ended. Marcus leaned back slightly. This isn't over, he said. Elena held his gaze. It is, she replied. A pause. Then. This is just the part where you decide how you leave it. Silence followed. Because that wasn't an offer. It was positioning. Marcus looked at the folder again. Didn't open it. Not yet. Explain, he said. Elena nodded slightly. It's a non-disclosure agreement, she said. You sign it. And this ends quietly. Marcus's jaw tightened. And if I don't? Elena didn't shift. Then it doesn't. A beat. Then. And you won't like what that looks like. No threat. No raised voice. Just clarity. Marcus exhaled slowly. Because he understood. Not everything. But enough. Enough to know. This wasn't negotiation. This was conclusion. Tell me something. What happens when the person you once controlled is now the one setting your terms? Stay with me. Because this moment is about to mirror something Marcus never thought he'd relive. Marcus opened the folder, slowly, not out of confidence, out of necessity. The paper inside was simple, structured, precise, no unnecessary language, no confusion, just terms. His eyes moved across the page, line by line, and with every word, the weight grew. This is nothing, he said. Elena tilted her head slightly. It's appropriate, she replied. Marcus looked up. You're offering me a fraction, he said. After everything. Elena raised a hand slightly, stopping him. After everything, she repeated. A pause. Then, yes, silence, because that phrase meant something very different to both of them. Marcus leaned forward. This company is worth billions, he said. Elena nodded once. It was, she replied. The correction landed, because it wasn't about value anymore. It was about ownership. Marcus tapped the document lightly. This doesn't reflect what I built. Elena's gaze didn't shift. It reflects what you're left with. A clean distinction. Sharp. Unavoidable. Marcus's grip tightened slightly. You're stripping me of everything, he said. Elena didn't deny it. She didn't soften it. She simply said, I already did. A pause. Then, this is what remains. Silence settled between them. Not tense, not loud, just Final. Marcus looked back down at the document. The number didn't change, didn't increase, didn't adjust, because it wasn't meant to. It wasn't a negotiation point. It was a statement. Elena leaned back slightly. You wanted a clean separation, she said. Marcus's eyes lifted. That's not the same thing. Elena's expression remained steady. No, she replied. It isn't. A beat, then. But it's what you asked for. The words landed, because they echoed something familiar, something he had said before, and now he was sitting on the other side of it. Tell me something. What happens when your own words come back to define your outcome? Stay with me, because this next moment is where everything becomes irreversible. The pen was placed beside the document, not dramatically, not forcefully, just there, waiting. Marcus stared at it, because he recognized the setup, the position, the weight of the moment. He had been here before, not physically, but structurally, across the table, watching someone else hold the pen, watching someone else decide, and now, the roles had reversed, completely. You planned this, he said. Elena didn't deny it. I prepared, she replied. The same answer, the same distinction. Marcus let out a breath. Short, uneven. You let me believe. He started, then stopped, because the sentence didn't hold, not anymore. Elena finished it for him. I let you be who you chose to be, she said. A pause. Then, you decided what that looked like. Marcus looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, there was no argument, no defense, just understanding, slow, uncomfortable, complete. His hand moved toward the pen, paused, not because he didn't know what to do, because he knew exactly what it meant. Elena's voice softened slightly, not with sympathy, with certainty. You understand this time, she said. A statement, not a question. Marcus nodded once, barely, because there was nothing left to misunderstand. He picked up the pen. The weight of it felt different, heavier, because this wasn't just a signature, it was acceptance. He placed it against the paper, and for a moment, everything slowed. The memory, the parallel, her sitting across from him, signing quietly, while he stood, certain, unmoved, and now, it was him, sitting, signing, broken. The pen moved. His name formed across the page. Clean, final, done. Marcus set the pen down slowly, didn't look up immediately, because looking up meant facing it, and he wasn't ready for that yet. Elena closed the folder, smooth, controlled, complete, and just like that, it was over, not emotionally, not symbolically, structurally. Tell me something. What happens when the moment you once controlled comes back around and puts you on the other side of it? Stay with me, because what comes next is what's left after everything is gone. Marcus stood slowly, not rushed, not steady, just rising. Elena remained seated, watching, not following, because there was nothing left to pursue. He looked at her, for a moment, as if searching for something, an opening, a shift, anything, but there was none, only clarity. I thought. He began, then stopped, because the thought didn't matter anymore. Elena didn't ask him to finish, because she already knew. Marcus exhaled. There's nothing left to say, is there? He asked. Elena held his gaze. No, she replied. Simple, final. Marcus nodded once, then turned, walked away, not stopped, not called back, just gone. And behind him, the music continued. The lights remained. The world moved forward. Without him, the rain had returned, not heavy, not dramatic, just steady, constant. Marcus stepped out beyond the gates. No car waiting, no driver, no destination, just movement. His shoes hit the pavement slowly, water collecting with each step. His clothes still damp from before, now heavier, colder. But he didn't stop, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking would only bring everything back. The voices, the moments, the realization. So he walked forward, without direction, without purpose, without control. The city didn't pause for him. Cars passed, people moved, lights changed, everything continued, as if nothing had happened, as if nothing had been lost. Marcus slowed slightly, his reflection caught in a window, blurred, distorted by rain, unrecognizable, not because his face had changed, but because everything attached to it had the name, the power, the identity gone, or rather, removed. A question settled in quietly, not loud, not urgent, just present. Who are you? Without all of it? Marcus didn't answer, because he didn't know. His phone buzzed once, then stopped. No flood of messages, no urgent calls, no demands, just silence. He looked at the screen, no new notifications, no missed connections, nothing, because the people who used to reach him had already moved on. The space around him felt wider now, not physically, but emotionally, empty, unclaimed, and for the first time, there was no one watching, no one judging, no one expecting anything from him. Just absence. Marcus stopped, not because he reached somewhere, because there was nowhere left to go. Rain fell steadily around him, soaking through everything, washing away nothing. He looked ahead, at the city, at the lights, at the life that continued without him, and for the first time, he didn't try to step back into it, didn't try to reclaim anything, because there was nothing left to reclaim, only this moment, this version of himself, stripped, quiet, real. Tell me something. What remains when everything else is gone? Stay with me, because sometimes that's where the truth finally begins. Morning came without urgency, no chaos, no pressure, just clarity. The glass walls of Elena's office reflected a city that had already adjusted to her presence at the top, not loudly, not dramatically, just naturally. She stood near the window, a tablet resting lightly in her hand, scanning reports that now carried her name, openly, correctly, without omission. Sebastian stepped in quietly. Everything is finalized, he said. Elena didn't turn immediately. Expected, she replied. Sebastian moved closer, placing a file on the table. New board structure is in place, he added. They're waiting for your approval. Elena glanced at it briefly, not rushed, not eager, just certain. Approve it, she said. Sebastian nodded, no hesitation, because this wasn't about validation anymore. It was about direction. Elena set the tablet down and finally turned. Her expression wasn't triumphant, wasn't satisfied in the way people expected after a victory. It was calm, grounded, complete. You're not celebrating, Sebastian observed. Elena tilted her head slightly. What would I be celebrating? Sebastian gestured lightly. You took control, he said. You restored everything. Elena's gaze softened, not emotionally, but in understanding. I didn't take anything, she replied. A pause. Then, I stopped pretending it wasn't mine. The distinction mattered, because this wasn't a rise, it was a return. And returns don't require noise, they require clarity. Sebastian studied her for a moment, then nodded. Because now, he understood the difference too. The boardroom was full, executives seated, advisors present, every position occupied. But when Elena entered, no one spoke, not out of fear, out of recognition, because presence like hers didn't need introduction. She took her seat at the head of the table. No hesitation, no adjustment, just alignment. Let's begin, she said. The meeting moved efficiently. Reports presented, decisions made, not dragged out, not debated unnecessarily. Because Elena didn't operate on uncertainty, she listened, processed, then spoke, clear, direct, final. At one point, an executive hesitated. Should we consider restoring the previous structure? He asked carefully. Elena's gaze met his. Why? The question was simple, but it carried weight. The executive shifted slightly. For continuity, he said. Elena leaned back. Continuity for who? She asked. Silence followed, because the answer didn't support the question. Elena nodded once. Move forward, she said. And just like that, the discussion ended. No resistance, no challenge. Because power, when it's real, doesn't need to prove itself. It simply exists. Tell me something. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room and change everything without raising their voice? That's not dominance. That's authority. And authority doesn't ask for permission. Later that evening, the building was quiet, not empty, just settled. Elena stood alone in her office again. The city stretched out below her. Lights steady, movement constant, life continuing. Sebastian approached the doorway. There's one more thing, he said. Elena turned slightly. Yes? He hesitated. Marcus, he said, do you want any follow-up actions taken? The question hung, not heavy, not urgent, just present. Elena looked out the window again, thoughtful, not conflicted, just clear. No, she said. Sebastian nodded slowly. Nothing at all. Elena shook her head. It's done. A simple statement, but complete. Because revenge requires energy, and Elena no longer needed it. What she had now was stability, ownership, peace, and peace doesn't chase what's already resolved. Sebastian studied her for a moment, then stepped back. Understood, because this wasn't about winning anymore. It was about being, and Elena was exactly where she needed to be. The office lights dimmed slightly as evening deepened. Elena remained where she was, not working, not moving, just present, because moments like this, they matter, not for what they show, but for what they confirm. Everything had shifted, not loudly, not violently, but completely, and through it all, she had remained the same, quiet, observant, certain. That was the difference. That was the power, not in the takeover, not in the exposure, but in the patience, the silence, the understanding of when to move and when to wait, because silence isn't weakness, it's strategy, and when used correctly, it doesn't just protect you, it positions you. Elena exhaled softly, not from relief, from completion. Tell me something. What's more powerful? A voice that demands attention, or a presence that never needed it? Stay with me, because the answer might change the way you see everything. Now that you've seen it all, every moment, every shift, every decision that led here, let's ask the real question. Did Marcus deserve what happened to him? Think about it. He didn't start from nothing. He had support, guidance, a foundation he didn't fully recognize. And when that foundation stood quietly beside him, he reduced it, dismissed it, treated it like it was replaceable. So when everything collapsed, was it loss or was it consequence? And what about Elena? Was she too harsh? Did she go too far? Or did she simply stop allowing herself to be underestimated? Because there's a difference, a big one, and that difference is where this story truly lives. Here's the part most people miss. Power doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it looks like silence, like patience, like someone standing in the background while everyone else takes credit, until the moment comes, and everything shifts. Marcus thought power was loud, visible, dominant, but Elena showed something different. Power can be quiet, precise, unseen until it chooses to be, and when it does, it doesn't ask. It changes everything. So next time you meet someone who doesn't speak much, who doesn't demand attention, who doesn't try to prove themselves, look again, because they might not be lacking power, they might just be holding it. Now, I want to hear from you. Be honest. Do you think Marcus deserved that outcome? Or do you think Elena went too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if this story made you feel something, if it made you think differently, if it kept you watching until this moment, hit the like button, because that tells me you want more stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe. because the next story might hit even harder. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been underestimated, or someone who underestimates others, share this with them, because stories like this, they're not just entertainment, they're reminders. At the end of everything, titles fade, money shifts, reputation changes, but truth stays. And in this story, the truth was simple. She was never weak. He just never saw her clearly, until it was too late.